Marshall McLuhan, the brilliant Canadian student of technology, the cool totalitarian, a genius parading as a charlatan. He was a man who believed that the purpose of the study of the past was to enable us to perceive the future and so to understand the present. Marshall McLuhan's theories regarding media and technology, termed McLuhanism, proved himself as a futurist due to his predictions of a change in the world order ultimately brought on by the World Wide Web, as well as a change in education and sexuality. We are living in the future that McLuhan foretold. Before discussing McLuhan's predictions surrounding the World Wide Web, education, and sexuality, it is important to know who he was and where he came from. He was born in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, on July 21, 1911, and was raised in a Protestant family, but later converted to the Catholic faith. Throughout his life, he sought to separate his intellectual career from his religious beliefs, as he believed that they clouded each other's individual importances. Strongly influenced by his mother, McLuhan received a master's degree in English literature before studying at Cambridge University in England, where he later received a doctorate. His book, Understanding Media, became particularly famous after the invention of the World Wide Web. In it, he laid out his predictions of the future, and specifically, his ideas of a global village. McLuhan wanted to make it clear to his readers and fellow intellectuals that he was not making unquestionable claims. He was open to criticism and feedback, as he believed that it would only help to discover more truths about the future. I am an investigator. I make probes. I have no point of view. I do not stay in one position. I don't explain. I explore. Harold Innis, an economic historian, was one of McLuhan's most significant colleagues who helped him to theorize his conceptions surrounding technology and media that would be termed McLuhanism. McLuhanism is the belief that any great new medium of communication alters the entire outlook of the people who use it. One of the earliest examples of McLuhanism was the printing press. McLuhan noted that much of his predictions were continuations of Innis's own research surrounding the effects of Gutenberg's printing press. These two men argued that the printing press resulted in a new world of nationalism, as ideas could spread quickly and people became more aware of the similarities of those around them. As McLuhanism states, the printing press, a new medium of communication, altered the outlook of those from the 15th century. McLuhan argued that over time, the human species' senses of perception were characterized by their unique societies. These societies were the primitive man, tribalism, and nationalism. McLuhan then predicted that the future would see a return to tribalism, but on a grander scale, that being a global tribalism which he called a global village. As McLuhan states, the primitive hunter or fisherman used all of his senses as he lived in a world without blinders. He needed each of his senses in order to survive his independent lifestyle. These blinders were only created upon man's ascent into civilization. Sedentary agricultural communities transformed mankind's social abilities through the development of villages. A society of villages, termed tribalism, was based on dialogue. In a tribalist society, people predominantly depended on their sense of sound, as, quote, the wisdom of the group was memorized and passed from generation to a generation. His identity was inseparable from the identity of the tribe, unquote. Mankind was not yet able to read or write, as the phonetic alphabet had not yet been created. Nationalism was based on knowledge. It existed out of the invention of a new technology, Gutenberg's printing press. McLuhan argued that the printing press alienated people as they would seclude themselves with their books and ignore the troubles of society around them. Man, alienated from himself and from his world, became a theme characteristic of the period. McLuhan's prediction of a global village is argued by modern intellectuals to refer to the World Wide Web, which had not yet been invented. He argued that mankind, through technologies such as the television and the new computer, would once again depend on a unity of the senses similar to the primitive man. In addition, the world would return to a nomadic society, where our quarry now is knowledge and insight. The computer would unite the entire world as never seen before, resulting in a greater awareness and participation of the people. Nationalism would end, and a single worldly identity would take its place. In the global village, it would no longer be possible to insulate racial groups from one another. Instead, all would be irrevocably involved with and responsible for one another. During his lifetime, McLuhan taught at many different institutions, and so he was well aware of the educational systems in place, and therefore predicted an inability for them to continue into the future. His previous predictions regarding a restructuring of the world order into a global village were optimistic, hinting at an escape from alienation. McLuhan's predictions regarding education, however, were dismal. Mass education grew up together with the production line. McLuhan argued that the educational systems in place would not be functional in the future. He believed that the main purpose of school before his time was to prepare students for specific jobs that required few skills. They, quote, demanded only a specified fragment of each human being's whole abilities, end quote. The future, he argued, would be drastically changed by electronic technology, mainly the new computer. He predicted that computers would create a two-way communication with students that would ultimately end the necessity of classrooms. Furthermore, he argued that the student of the future will truly be a huntsman, as each person was responsible for the acquiring of their own education and would have to face many challenges on their own. McLuhan makes another prediction regarding the eventual disappearance of a separation between men and women in society and public spheres. He wrote that, in the beginning there was little separation apart from childbearing and child-rearing. Over time, however, mankind created civilizations and cities that placed men in leadership and authoritarian positions while placing the women in subservient roles. This differentiation between the sexes will end, as the unique characteristics of men will ultimately become inconsequential in a non-aggressive, technologically based society. With this, the discreet and reserved nature of sex and nudity, strongly linked to the Victorian era, will also end. It will become the norm as it merges with ordinary living. McLuhan writes, "Don't throw away your Playboy foldouts, however, as he's sure they will be worth some money as collector's items." McLuhan's final prediction was this: the global village could bring all humanity together for slaughter as easily as for anything else. This demonstrates that although McLuhan was an intellectual who studied the advancing effects of technology on society, he remained both optimistic as well as cautious of the consequences. McLuhan's future consists of a united world where people across the globe understand and care for one another, where students can learn at their own pace and utilize all of their skills, and where men and women will finally be equal. McLuhan was ahead of his time in predicting the World Wide Web, and we can only hope that his predictions regarding technology's effect on education and sexuality will also become true.